comes a time when we must rise above the noise. The judgments, the criticism, the chaos of the outside world, they are not here to define us. We were not born to be controlled by opinions, by rejection, or by the temporary conditions of life. We were born to be free, to be whole, to be powerful, and that begins with learning how to act as if nothing affects you. You are the power in your world. This truth, once fully embraced, becomes the foundation for a completely new life. It means you are not at the mercy of circumstances. You are not a victim of other people's behavior, nor are you bound by the past. You are the thinker of your thoughts. And every thought you think is shaping your experience of reality. Every word you speak is a declaration to the universe of what you believe you deserve. You hold within you the creative energy that forms worlds. That is how powerful you are. For so long, many of us have believed that life happens to us. We were taught to wait for permission, to seek validation, to strive for approval outside of ourselves. But that way of living only creates suffering, because when your sense of worth is determined by others, you live in a constant state of instability. You feel anxious, afraid of rejection, desperate to be accepted. You begin to bend and break in order to please, and in doing so, you lose yourself. But what if you remembered that you are the source? What if you realized that no matter what anyone else does, says, or thinks, you have the power to choose your response? That your worth is not up for negotiation and never was. The moment you begin to stand in that awareness, everything begins to shift. You no longer react to life, you create it. You no longer seek love, you become love. You no longer chase success, you align with it. This isn't about ego or force. It's about stepping into your natural state of being. You were born with value, you were born worthy, and no external circumstance can take that away. You do not need to earn your right to be here. You simply are. And from that knowing, you begin to see the world differently. You stop waiting for the perfect moment and you begin to create it. You stop asking for permission and you begin to trust your inner guidance, because you realize that the most sacred voice you can listen to is the one within. Life begins to feel lighter when you step into your power. You no longer cling to what doesn't serve you. You no longer tolerate disrespect, dishonesty, or disconnection. Not because you are angry, but because you love yourself enough to choose peace. You know that you don't have to prove anything to anyone. The way you walk, the way you speak, the energy you carry, it all begins to radiate quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't shout, but is deeply felt, the kind that draws in the right people, the right opportunities, the right experiences without effort. When you remember that you are the power in your world, you no longer fear change. Instead, you welcome it. You see endings as beginnings. Rejection becomes redirection. Loss becomes a clearing for something more aligned. You don't hold on to the past because you trust that the universe is always guiding you towards something greater. You learn to surrender not out of defeat, but out of deep faith. You stop trying to control everything and instead focus on controlling your thoughts, your energy, your perspective. Every day you are given a choice to react or to respond, to worry or to trust, to resist or to allow. When you take your power back, you choose differently. You begin to speak to yourself with kindness. You start affirming your own worth. You start expecting good things. And soon your outer world starts to reflect your inner world. Relationships improve, opportunities unfold, and peace becomes your home. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You just need to be willing to believe in yourself, even if no one else does. Even if everything around you tells you to give up, you keep going, you keep rising, because the truth is, your mind is your kingdom, your heart is your compass, and your soul is limitless. So today, claim it, say it aloud. I am the power in my world. I choose thoughts that support me. I speak words that uplift me. I surround myself with energy that honors me. You are not here to be small. You are here to expand, to grow, to inspire. And it all starts with a decision to no longer hand your power over to fear, to doubt, to outside voices. Breathe in your power, breathe out your past, stand in your truth, and know that every step you take from this moment on is guided, supported, and held by the infinite power within you. Detachment is often misunderstood. Many people confuse it with coldness, with shutting down or not caring. But true detachment is none of these things. True detachment is strength. It is the quiet confidence of someone who has learned to let go of what they cannot control while still keeping their heart open. It is a sign of deep inner peace, not indifference. When you are attached to something or someone, you often cling. You hold on tightly, not out of love, but out of fear. The fear of losing, the fear of being alone, the fear that if you let go, everything will fall apart. But in that clinging, you create suffering. You begin to identify your happiness with something outside of yourself. You give away your power to circumstances, people, and outcomes. Your emotional state becomes tied to whether or not things go your way. Detachment is not about pushing people away. It is not about building walls or pretending you don't feel. It is about understanding that you can care deeply without losing yourself. It is the ability to love with your whole heart and yet remain whole even if the other person walks away. It is knowing that your peace does not depend on someone else staying, apologizing, or changing. Detachment is love without expectation. It is action without obsession. It is showing up fully, but being okay with whatever comes next. In truth, detachment is the highest form of self-respect. It means you no longer chase, beg, or force. You allow life to unfold as it will. You trust the process. You trust yourself. And you trust that what is meant for you will never require you to lose your dignity or your inner balance. You begin to understand that clinging does not bring closeness. It creates distance. The tighter you hold, the more things slip away. But when you loosen your grip, when you relax and release, the energy shifts. You give others the freedom to show up authentically. You give yourself the freedom to breathe. You see, detachment is not about not feeling. It's about not drowning in your feelings. It's not about being numb. It's about being centered. You learn to feel everything deeply and then let it pass. You no longer attach your worth to the outcome. You know that rejection doesn't define you, that silence isn't a reflection of your value, that someone else's inability to love you has nothing to do with your lovability. When you master the art of detachment, you begin to rise above drama. You stop reacting to every trigger. You stop needing to explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You become a calm presence in the middle of life's storms. Not because you don't care, but because you have found something more important than control. Your peace. You become unattached to needing closure. You stop chasing validation. You stop asking why. Instead, you accept what is. You make peace with not knowing. You surrender the need to fix or figure it all out, because you realize that the more you surrender, the more things align. You step into the flow. You begin to trust divine timing. You know that everything that is leaving your life is making space for something better. With detachment comes clarity. You begin to see who truly belongs in your life, not just who wants to be there, but who aligns with your values, your energy, your growth. You stop holding on to people out of habit, guilt, or fear. You allow the natural cycles of relationships to unfold. Some people are lessons, some are blessings, and some are both. Detachment allows you to honor them all without losing yourself in any of them. And perhaps most importantly, detachment brings freedom. Freedom from overthinking, freedom from emotional exhaustion, freedom from the stories you tell yourself about needing something outside of you to feel whole. You begin to fill your own cup. You take responsibility for your own joy. And from that place, you begin to create relationships that are healthy, balanced, and grounded. Not in fear, but in love. So no, detachment is not indifference. It is the greatest act of love you can offer yourself. It says, I love you, but I will not abandon myself for you. It says, I care, but I will not cling. It says, I want this, but I will be okay without it. That is strength, that is peace, that is freedom. Reclaiming your emotional independence is one of the most empowering decisions you will ever make. It is the moment you stop outsourcing your happiness, your peace, and your self-worth to other people. It's the shift from being emotionally reactive to becoming emotionally resilient. This is not about building walls or pretending you don't care. It's about recognizing that your inner world belongs to you, and you alone are responsible for it. Too often we tie our emotions to external sources. We wait for someone to validate us, to compliment us, to approve of our decisions before we feel good about ourselves. We allow someone else's mood to determine our own. If they are cold, we feel rejected. If they are loving, we feel worthy. This emotional dependency creates a roller coaster that leaves us exhausted and disempowered. And eventually we begin to believe the lie that our peace is only possible if someone else behaves the way we want them to. But here is the truth. No one can make you feel anything unless you allow it. Your emotions are your responsibility. They rise from your interpretations, your beliefs, your inner dialogue. And that is where your power lies. When you reclaim your emotional independence, you take back control over your inner landscape. You no longer let someone's silence destroy your self-esteem. You no longer let a missed call ruin your day. You no longer beg for love or chase after approval. Instead, you turn inward and give yourself what you've been seeking from others. This process begins with awareness. You start to observe the patterns, how your mood fluctuates based on someone else's actions, how easily you feel triggered when you don't get the response you hoped for, how often you sacrifice your own needs just to keep the peace or feel accepted. And then you ask yourself, is this how I want to live? Is this the emotional life I want to continue creating? Once you become aware, you make a decision. A powerful decision to stop giving your emotional power away. You decide to become the source of your own joy. You choose to love yourself, no matter who walks in or out of your life. You begin to build a relationship with yourself that is strong, grounded, and unconditional. You affirm yourself, you soothe yourself, you celebrate yourself. You no longer wait for someone else to make you feel seen. You learn to see yourself. Emotional independence also means letting go of the need to control others. You stop trying to fix people, change them, or get them to see your worth. You realize that everyone is on their own journey and their behavior is a reflection of them, not you. You stop taking things personally. You stop overanalyzing every text, every gesture, every word. You learn to give space, not out of indifference, but out of trust. Trust in yourself, trust in the flow of life, trust that what is truly meant for you will not require emotional chaos to sustain it. There is peace in emotional independence, a calm confidence that radiates from within. You become less reactive and more reflective. Instead of immediately responding to a trigger, you pause, you breathe, and you choose your response. You give yourself permission to feel your emotions fully, but you no longer let them control you. You become the calm in your own storm. You become your own anchor. This does not mean you stop connecting with others. It means you connect from a place of wholeness, not from need. You love freely, but not desperately. You can walk away when something no longer aligns with your values, not because you're cold-hearted, but because you value your peace more than emotional dependency. You realize that being alone does not mean being lonely. It means you are strong enough to enjoy your own company and selective enough about who you allow into your sacred space. Reclaiming your emotional independence is a daily practice. It takes self-awareness, self-discipline, and most importantly, self-love. But as you continue to build that foundation, you begin to see the transformation. You no longer fall apart when someone disappoints you. You no longer lose sleep over things you can't control. You walk through life with grace, knowing that your emotions are safe in your own hands. And in that power, in that peace, everything changes. Your relationships improve. Your confidence grows. You begin to attract people who respect your boundaries and match your energy, not because you chased them, but because you became whole within yourself. So stand tall, breathe deep, reclaim what has always been yours, your emotional independence. Because when your happiness is no longer held hostage by the world around you, you become truly free. There is a deep and powerful wisdom in silence. It is not emptiness. It is not passivity. It is not weakness. Silence, when used consciously, becomes one of the most potent forms of communication. It speaks volumes in moments when words would only complicate, escalate, or distort. In a world where people are quick to defend, explain, and react, silence becomes a rare and powerful response. Reacting is often driven by emotion, by the need to be understood, the desire to defend our worth, or the urge to prove someone wrong. But when we constantly react, we give away our peace. We become trapped in a cycle of emotional reactivity that drains our energy and clouds our clarity. We let others control our state of being simply because they know how to push our buttons. That's not strength, that's dependence. Silence, on the other hand, is strength wrapped in stillness. It is not the absence of a voice, it is the presence of wisdom. When you choose silence over reaction, you reclaim your power. You tell the world, I will not be pulled into chaos. I will not lower my frequency to match dysfunction. I choose peace over proving a point. That choice says more than any argument ever could. There is a sacred power in the pause. When you remain silent in the face of conflict or provocation, you create space. In that space, you protect your energy. You observe rather than absorb. You learn rather than lash out. You remain grounded in who you are rather than becoming entangled in someone else's storm. Silence becomes your shield and your sanctuary. People may misinterpret your silence. They may see it as indifference or weakness. Let them. Their perception is not your responsibility. The truth is, silence often triggers the very people who thrive on control or chaos. They want a reaction. They feed on it. When you refuse to give it, they are left with their own reflection. And that, more than anything, is uncomfortable for them to face. You are not required to explain your worth. You do not need to argue with someone committed to misunderstanding you. You do not have to fight for a seat at a table you've outgrown. Your silence becomes a declaration. I know who I am. I don't need your permission to stand in my truth. In relationships, silence can be healing. When used wisely, it allows emotions to settle. It gives room for reflection. It prevents regretful words that can never be taken back. It says, I'm choosing to pause so I can respond from love instead of fear. It creates space for understanding instead of fueling misunderstanding. And sometimes that silence speaks the loudest. It says, this is not the energy I accept in my life. Silence can also be a form of closure. Not every wound needs to be reopened. Not every conversation deserves to be had. When you walk away in silence, you choose peace over chaos, dignity over drama. You close the door without slamming it. You move on without needing to be heard one last time. Because you've realized your peace is louder than their noise. Choosing silence doesn't mean you suppress your emotions. It means you process them internally with maturity and grace. You allow your feelings to surface, but you don't let them control your actions. You journal, you meditate, you reflect. You learn to sit with discomfort without rushing to release it onto others. In doing so, you master yourself. And this self-mastery brings clarity. It helps you see what's worth your energy and what's simply bait. It shows you who respects your boundaries and who only seeks a reaction. You begin to discern who deserves a response and who deserves your silence. And more often than not, silence becomes the most appropriate answer. Eventually, your silence becomes your statement. It tells people, I will not argue for my value. I will not beg to be treated right. I will not participate in emotional chaos. It reminds them, and yourself, that your energy is sacred. So let them wonder why you didn't respond. Let them sit with the weight of their words while you walk away in peace. Let them talk while you grow, because silence, when chosen with intention, becomes your power. It keeps you aligned with your truth. It keeps you focused on your peace. And in a world full of noise and reaction, your silence becomes your revolution. Never underestimate the power of the quiet ones. We are not silent because we have nothing to say. We are silent because we understand that not everything deserves our voice. We choose stillness not because we are afraid, but because we are wise enough to know when speaking serves no purpose. And in that wisdom we rise. There is a quiet power that lies in learning to observe without absorbing. It is the art of being fully present in the world without allowing the world to overwhelm you. So many of us were taught to feel everything, to carry everyone's burdens, to take on energies, emotions, and experiences that were never ours to begin with. Somewhere along the way, we confused compassion with self-sacrifice, empathy with self-neglect. But the truth is, you can care deeply and still protect your energy. You can be aware without being consumed. You can observe without absorbing. This begins with understanding that you are not a sponge. You are a soul with boundaries. You do not have to take in the anger of another person. You do not have to internalize the sadness in the room. You do not have to carry the chaos of others just to feel needed or connected. You can see what's happening, you can acknowledge it, you can even hold space for someone else's pain, but you do not have to make it yours. The moment you recognize that your peace is sacred, you stop giving it away so freely. You stop absorbing every glance, every tone, every mood that doesn't belong to you. You realize that someone else's bad day is not a reflection of your worth. Their withdrawal is not a rejection of your value. Their frustration is not something for you to fix. You begin to separate what belongs to you and what doesn't. Observing without absorbing is a choice, a daily, conscious decision to stay grounded in your own energy. It requires awareness, it requires discipline, and most importantly, it requires self-love. Because when you love yourself, you stop letting the world dictate your internal climate. You become like a mountain, steady, unmoved by the winds of external chaos. This does not mean you become cold or detached. It means you become emotionally intelligent. You see the pain in others without drowning in it. You hear the negativity without allowing it to poison your mind. You stand firm in your truth, even when surrounded by confusion. This is not avoidance. This is wisdom. You are allowed to witness someone else's struggle and still protect your peace. You are allowed to walk away from drama without explanation. You are allowed to set energetic boundaries that honor your well-being. Because when you are constantly absorbing everything around you, you lose touch with yourself. You become scattered. You feel drained, anxious, reactive, and over time, you begin to carry emotions that were never yours. projecting them onto your own life as if they were born within you. But when you observe, you remain the watcher. You stay anchored in presence. You notice the emotions rise, but you do not become them. You feel the tension in the air, but you do not invite it into your body. You see someone's anger, and instead of reacting or absorbing it, you pause, you breathe, and you let it pass through. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough to stay whole. One of the most beautiful things that happens when you start observing instead of absorbing is that you begin to trust yourself again. You realize that you don't have to fix everything. You don't have to prove your love by carrying everyone else's weight. You don't have to react to every energy that enters the room. You can simply be. You can observe. You can hold space for your peace. You also begin to recognize your triggers, not to judge them, but to heal them. You understand that sometimes the discomfort you feel isn't even yours. You become more mindful of what you allow into your energy field. You become selective with your conversations, your company, and even your thoughts. Because you've learned that your mental and emotional space is not a dumping ground. It's a sacred garden, and you are the gatekeeper. It's okay to walk away from what disturbs your peace. It's okay to say, "That's not mine to carry." It's okay to choose silence over reaction, distance over drama, solitude over noise. That doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. It means you've decided to live intentionally rather than emotionally entangled in everyone else's mess. As you grow, you begin to embody this wisdom more and more. You move through the world as an observer, curious, calm, compassionate, but never consumed. You no longer allow everything to penetrate your heart. You create space between what you feel and how you respond. You hold your energy like it's precious because it is. So breathe deeply, detach with love. Remind yourself every day, I can observe without absorbing. I can witness without becoming. I can care without collapsing. And in doing so, you rise into a version of yourself that is both soft and strong, present and protected, open and untouchable. That is the power of conscious living. That is the gift of emotional freedom. In a world that often rushes, pressures, and pulls us in countless directions, calm becomes a sacred power. It is not weakness, nor is it inaction. Calm is clarity. It is stillness that listens. It is peace that radiates. And when you anchor yourself in calm, something miraculous begins to happen. The universe listens. It hears your energy before it hears your words. It feels your vibration before it reads your thoughts. The universe responds not to desperation, not to chaos, but to calm certainty. You are always sending messages to life with your energy. Every thought, every emotion, every reaction is a form of communication. When you panic, plead, and chase, you are broadcasting lack. You are sending a signal that says, I do not trust, I do not believe, I am afraid. And life, in its infinite wisdom, reflects back that very frequency. But when you choose calm, even in the middle of uncertainty, you say, I trust that everything is unfolding in divine order. I am grounded in faith, not fear. I am aligned with the outcome even before I see it. And in that moment, the universe shifts. It begins to open doors, soften timelines, and create the path for your desires to find you. Calm is a form of confidence. It is the quiet knowing that you are supported, guided, and held. It does not beg, it does not chase, it does not worry itself into exhaustion. Calm trusts the process. Calm allows space for miracles. It does not rush the river, it flows with it. It lets go of control, and in that surrender finds true power. When you remain calm in the face of difficulty, you become a magnet for resolution. Your vibration becomes steady, and steady energy is magnetic. People are drawn to those who remain unshaken. Opportunities are attracted to those who are grounded. Solutions arise when your mind and heart are still. The answer is rarely found in frantic searching. It is revealed in the quiet. Calm is the space where clarity enters. So many of us were taught to panic our way to success, to worry our way to love, to stress our way into worthiness. But the truth is, the more frantically we reach, the further things seem to drift. You cannot force what's meant for you. You can only align with it. And alignment happens through calm, through trust, through knowing that the energy you hold inside is far more powerful than the effort you push outward. You are not behind. You are not missing anything. Nothing is being withheld from you except by your own resistance. And resistance often shows up as anxiety, fear, and control. Let them go. Let stillness become your strategy. Let peace become your plan. Watch how life starts to respond, not to your pressure, but to your presence. It is in calm moments that your intuition speaks. It is when you slow down that you hear the whispers of guidance, that quiet nudge, that subtle inspiration, that deep knowing. The universe is always communicating with you, but its language is soft. You must be calm enough to hear it. You must be still enough to receive it. Calm is not just for meditation cushions or yoga mats. Calm is for the middle of your busy day. It is for traffic jams, difficult conversations, unexpected changes. Calm is your strength. It is your power in every moment. When someone tries to provoke you and you choose silence instead of reaction, that is calm. When something doesn't go your way and you breathe instead of breaking down, that is calm. When the outcome is uncertain and yet you stand in faith, that is calm. And the universe sees it. The universe mirrors it. Calm says, I trust that I am being guided. Calm says, I release the how and allow the flow. Calm says, I know that everything I seek is already seeking me. And when you live from this space, life becomes less of a battle and more of a dance. You stop fighting for your place and start receiving what is already aligned. You do not have to prove your worth. You do not have to chase your dreams in fear. You do not have to force outcomes through stress. Be calm, be still, be open. That is the vibration of creation. That is the space where transformation happens. That is where the universe begins to move mountains for you, quietly, beautifully, in perfect timing. So next time you're tempted to rush, to worry, to react, pause, inhale deeply. Remind yourself that your calm is more powerful than any fear. Speak softly to your heart. Choose trust over tension. And in that moment, you become one with the rhythm of life itself. The universe is always responding. Let it respond to your calm. Let it reflect your inner peace with outer blessings.